On today. We're going to learn how to walk in the truth. It starts off, the elder to the beloved Gaius, I'll say Gaius, whom I love in truth. Beloved, I pray that you may prosper in all things and be in health, just as your soul prospers. The elder, the word there, elder, in the Greek is presbyteros. It's where the Presbyterians get the name for their denomination. The idea is that they have a rule of elders in their denomination. And then to the beloved Gaius. The weird thing about Gaius is we know nothing about Gaius because it's such a common name. It's like Brad, right? If you have a name, it doesn't really define you because there's so many Brads in the world, or Karens, right? Or Alyssas. Like there's so many of them. Or at this church, Mike, right? If I say I'm talking to Mike, you have to say which one. So Gaius is like that in the Roman world because Gaius Julius Caesar was famous. People named their babies after him. So there were a ton of these people. In that sense, like last time we talked about in 2 John, that they might have been concealing names because of persecution. Well, they might still be doing the same thing. It's not that John's calling it out. It's that it'd be really easy to say, well, that's not me, that he's not writing this letter to me. So there's not much you can do when you're not using last names or conditioning things. 1 John is written to the entire extended church, like the Gospel of John. Everybody should know 1 John. 2 John is written in a way, it's written to the elect lady and her children. It's written to a single church. 3 John, uniquely, is written to an individual very clearly. It's a personal text between one person to another. Only it wasn't so personal because they published it and shared it with all the different churches because it was so helpful. All three of these letters, 1 John, 2 John, 3 John, I'm going to argue they all speak of the exact same doctrine. It's like, wow, we're talking about that again this week? Yeah, but they each have a slightly different angle, and those different angles have something to do with the audience. I'm going to handle hospitality one way if we're talking about the entire church, church-wide. I'm going to handle it a little differently if we as a body are going to handle it versus me as an individual. How do I handle things? And I think that's really essential because this is, again, if I hate to make pop movie references, but this is kind of a red pill thing. If you're not a believer and your eyes haven't been opened to the spiritual world, this is a really hard letter to read and understand. If you, however, have accepted Christ, begun to follow Christ, and he's opened your eyes to certain realities that you weren't aware of before you were saved, this letter makes a ton of sense. And it's actually really helpful. In fact, I'm glad that I had this letter as I was growing in the faith because it was incredibly instructive on how to do some of the very finer points of walking in the faith. So there is a doctrine here of showing how to live out our love in truth. And truth and love have to go hand in hand. We'll get into that a little bit. But there is an open-heartedness to our giving and our generosity, right? I hope as Christians we're like, man, everything I have is the Lord's for me to steward and take care of. You can have all of it. And Lord only asks for 10%, but Lord, whatever you need, whatever is needed by other people around me, if I can help, I will. On the other hand, there's this truth that there are people that come just looking for handouts. There are wolves that come in and they're hungry for what God's people have. And they're perfectly willing to take advantage of our generosity, our hospitality. They're perfectly willing to walk all over people. So similar to the opening of John, this assumes the reader knows who the elder is. The elder is John, not just on church tradition, but on writing style, form, and where we find these Greek texts. The recipient, Gaius, is perhaps the companion of Paul's back in Acts 14, we don't know. Could be the host of one of the fellowships in Romans 16, we don't know. But it does definitely come down to the idea of there's a name here. And if John's going to use the name in an era of persecution, we should be cued into that. Let's look up what the name means, right? If a presbyteros, an elder in the church, what is a Gaius? Well, it's a lord or a leader or a head. You could argue this was an alternative name for a pastor, a Gaius. They're just using the Latin term versus like elder, the Greek term. He says, I love in truth. Said that in the last letter too. Again, this idea that John's writing a letter not out of a false love or a fake love or a pretend love, but I love you for real like, right? It's a truthful love. And that should cue us off. He's about to rebuke us. Whenever a pastor says, I love you in truth, just get ready because the hammer's coming, right? The next thing that's going to be there. The love there is agapeo. We've seen that in all of John's writing. He uses a particular Greek term, but when you're a Bible scholar, like it's barely even particular anymore. It's the common usage of the word love, which is this family love, this family fondness, this covenantal love, the love that doesn't break or get shattered because of circumstance or problems or offenses. Yet we see it so often in the Bible, we take it for granted, but the common Greek parlance rarely used this term. It was usually phileo love. Remember Peter's mistake when Jesus was like, I love you? And he's like, well, yeah, I phileo you too. Like, we're cool, Jesus. But it's not that kind of thing. It's we're in covenant together. We walk together. When we take communion after the teaching today, we're in covenant together. And in that comes a certain obligation one to another. And Jesus does that because he wants this to look a little bit like heaven so that people know what they're getting if they sign up to follow Jesus. But if we're a mess, there's not much for people to follow or go after. We carry Jesus in us as a body. The truth there, aletheia, is an objective, confirmed as reality truth, an objective truth. So we don't love in hopefulness that there might be something there. We don't love in faith, taking a step and doing it in an obligatory way or being faithful. We love in truth in this passage. We love not in any kind of fake way. Remember 1 John and 2 John? If we're going to say we love each other, it shouldn't be make-believe. It should be true. Or don't lie. You're bearing false witness if you say you love someone but you harbor resentment. John even takes it to the level of if you say you love someone and you don't even have God in you. You don't understand the faith. Again, red pill moment, right? You haven't opened your eyes to what faith walking looks like. So the word beloved gets used 3 times right up front. Boom, boom, boom. This is a loved leader, a loved Gaius, one that John and God both adore and care for. He wants prosperity. The word there, eudeo, is a compound word. In the Greek, the literal translation is well journey. Isn't that, I think the English loses some of that. Beloved, I pray that you may well journey in all things and be in health. That does not mean I pray you get a raise at work or I pray you win the lottery. It has very little to do with financial wealth. But it does have something to do with, I hope things are going well for you in all regards. Eudeo. I want all things to be in health. He's praying for his health in order to stay well. How many people at the church have to miss fellowship because of health? I mean, it's a common thing, right? We have one of our sisters today who's home because she had toe surgery. But praying for health is one of the gifts of the Spirit. And some people notice this, some people don't. Again, it's a tough thing to talk about because I do think sometimes God uses your health to get your attention on things. Sometimes your health is just you're getting old and your body's falling apart. Makes you should desire or get homesick for heaven. But sometimes the opposite happens. Sometimes God gives you enduring health that seems to make it so you're equipped and ready to do the ministry God's got for you to do. You just rarely, if ever, get sick. And so, not to be jealous of one another in that, but I'm jealous of people that get sick once every 4 or 5 years. I think that's great. So John prays that for Gaius. I pray that you have health. And I pray, and I think this is great, just as your soul prospers, just as meaning John knows that his soul is prospering, he's praying then for his life to prosper too. And so prosperity gospel people love verse 2. They love this verse, right? We should be praying that everyone in the church gets wealthy and rich. And I think it's a complete misreading. We should be praying everyone in the church is advancing in life in the ways that would bless them and give them peace. Read the gifts of the Spirit. That's what we're praying for when it comes to prosperity. And John's saying, I know your soul prospers, but I pray that everything goes well and your health is going well too. And again, this is like a book of wisdom, right? The New Testament book of wisdom. We should be praying for each other like that. We should be praying those things upon one another. So there's a twofold blessing in both the things of life and the soul prospering. John separates them. They're not the same thing. I want you to prosper in life. I know that I want you to prosper in your soul. I want your soul to be healthy. And so he gives reason for this. The word for, so I pray for your prosperity, for I rejoiced greatly when brethren came. There's a cause for this prayer. People come, they show up to John, and they tell him all about what's going on at the other church. Now, a lot of times when people go from one church to the other, they just gossip about the other church, right? It's just giving them the dirt on it. They came and they testified to the truth that's in you. Hey, Gaius is walking in the truth. You wonder who Gaius was before, because John's so surprised at this, he writes him a letter to say, nice job, right? So imagine somebody of the church that's really struggling. They're having problems with their faith. They're there out of obedience. Maybe they just got saved right before John took off. And you kind of wonder, like, how are they doing? What's going on? Are they prospering where they go? So for I rejoice greatly when brethren came and testified to the truth that's in you, just as you walk in the truth. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in the truth. We see this language in the New Testament, my children, implying that John probably told him about the gospel. So it's not that John's claiming he's a biological son. He is claiming that in the same way he used the word brethren, there are brothers and sisters, that there is a family here. And when new believers come into the family, they are babes in Christ. They're children. And so that idea that children start to grow up, they're walking the right way, they're taking on responsibility. I mean, imagine somebody coming to John and just saying, hey, you remember Gaius, what a screw up that guy was? He's walking in the truth. He's figuring it out. He's finding peace in his life, and man, his soul is just prospering. He's getting his life in order. He's getting peace in his home. He's building relationships. He's still growing and persisting in the faith, even though you took off, John, and bailed out on him. You know, it probably would be hard for John to go from church to church. I imagine that for Paul, too. You get a church up and running, and 2-3 years later, Paul's like, God's calling me somewhere else. You got a whole church just sitting there going, But it makes John feel good because he thinks like a pastor. He thinks in a shepherding way. It's not that when he has to go to follow the Lord that he wants Gaius to falter in his faith. He wants Gaius to strive in his faith. So here's the other piece. Brethren came and testified of the truth that's in you. How does that happen? You may have an internal working about where you're at with the Lord, but at some level, Gaius, that internal working is becoming an outward manifestation. Isn't that great? They testify because they can see what Gaius does, and it speaks to where his heart is at. It's not that he does things to get saved, but you can see the fruit in people's lives. So there's this idea that Gaius is imitating the right people. He's changing his disposition, his reactions, his habits are altering and changing to be more godly, and everybody can see it and notice it. And it becomes something that they're able to actually give testimony, or they're able to talk about what they've seen. Ephesians 5:1 says something like this: be imitators of God as dear children, same children language, and walk in love as Christ also loved us and gave himself for us, offering and sacrifices to God as a sweet-smelling aroma. Ever around people in the church as they grow, and it's just like they're easier and easier to be around? They're more and more fun to be around. There's a sweet aroma to them where you're like, oh, I just love their cologne. To know the truth and to live in it, there's a sweetness to that. It's beautiful. To walk in the truth is to walk without deceit, no hypocrisy, no fakery, no falseness, just pure and real. I think one of the main problems people have when they're not following the Lord is they have this guard up. They got this persona they want everybody else to see, but you can't see who they are. They've put a wall up, we talk about it. The Bible talks about it like hypocrisy, literally acting or putting on a mask. The more broadly Jesus is the truth, so when we walk in the truth, we imitate Jesus. Not just as an individual, but as a church we do that too. We try to act like Jesus as a church. So when people know us, they know who we are. It's in everything we do, all of our decisions, all of our choices, how we do it. It's not just on Sundays, it's how we behave when we leave here for 6 days a week. And we take on a like personality. You ever notice that? Certain churches have certain personalities to them. And you meet somebody at like a larger event and you're like, I bet you're from Calvary Twin Cities. You got that sweetness about you. Like there's a certain flavor to that candy. And I love the fact that when I talk to people and they meet you outside of this church, they'll say, hey, Sean, I met somebody who says they go to your church, and it wasn't a surprise at all. I could totally see that character coming out. And John says in verse 4, there's no greater joy. This is amazing news, and as a believer, when we hear other people we've helped in their growth are walking in the truth, that really is one of the great joys of walking in the faith. Think about believers that go 20 years and never tell people about the truth, never talk about the truth, never disciple anyone. You're missing out on John's greatest joy, that is seeing people grow and change and develop over time. Then we get to verse 5. Beloved, you do faithfully whatever you do for the brethren and for the strangers. What a compliment. There's that word beloved again. Gaius' ministry was so apparent that John's able to confirm what he's heard and speak it back to him. And within the church, we have a number of people like this, right? Whatever you do faithfully. Let's talk about that. Faithfully, the word pistis often gets translated like, faith is my intellectual belief in Jesus. Biblically, it's used mostly as a pattern of behavior that's reliable. So when I say, okay, it's your job to clean the bricks every week, and you're like, I'm on it. The Lord's calling me to help out, and I want to clean bricks every week. Okay, great, you got it. Here's the scrubbing tools. We'll get you, some rubber gloves so you can scrub bricks every week. Go for it. But then 2 weeks later, I wasn't able to get to the bricks this week. I forgot the bricks. That's called faithlessness. You're not being faithful. You've taken on a responsibility, you've taken on a ministry, and you're not faithful in it. And so when Gaius is getting complimented about his faithfulness, it might indicate that that's an area of growth for him. He wasn't faithful when John was there, and so he is faithful in what he's doing now. He is imitating Christ in that he's reliable. He's just there all the time. I love the fact that when God appoints people for the church, first apostles, second prophets, 1 Corinthians 12, third teachers, after that miracles, healings, then there's this word in there called helps. It's one of the gifts. Administrations, a variety of tongues. Gaius is known for his helps. And I think we underestimate that as a church often. Like I was so blessed. I even told David I was so blessed today because I could just stop for a second because we kind of come in at 10:30 and there's this flurry of activity and we're getting stuff ready. But there was like 4 or 5 families here helping to make everything happen today. And it's such a blessing because everybody's on their job, they know what they're doing, and they're faithful in those things so that we can get up and teach the word and have it go out via audio recordings and video and everything else. All of that requires 15 faithful people every week to get that done. Same thing happens when we clean up at the end of the day. The gift of helps is something that Gaius, there's a whole epistle in the gospel, in the Bible, dedicated to saying, nice job, Gaius, you're a helper. You're faithful in what you do. You say you're going to take care of something and it's just taken care of. It's done. You do faithfully whatever you do. I like whatever too. I would love to be known when I die as a whatever Christian. I'll do whatever God wants me to do, whenever he wants me to do it, wherever he wants me to do it. And Gaius is one of those guys. You do faithfully whatever, because there's always stuff that comes up, always new things to be done. Let each one of you give as you purpose in your heart, not grudgingly, not out of necessity, for God loves a cheerful giver. 2 Corinthians 9:7. God loves it when you just come in and do the things you can do, and you do it with a joy and a cheer. It's amazing. So whatever Christians are people that are growing in their faith. They're no longer just abiding, which is good, but there's a part where it gives them great joy, doctrine of achievement. That whatever we need to do it better, greater, at a larger level. But I don't see that in the scriptures. Listen to what's in the scriptures. This is Jesus celebrates just serving drinks. That's helps. It's pitching in, helping out. And the desire or the thought that we need to do more than that in our walk to get the reward of heaven, that's works-based theology. There's nothing more that we need to do than what we're cheerful in doing. And if grumpy people, if you don't feel like doing anything, then don't. Because grumpy people serving in the ministry are not helping the ministry. It's not easy to work with you. So don't be a grumpy servant. Don't be a grumpy helper. Just do the stuff that you like doing around the church and help out. Whatever service doesn't have pride involved. I'll do whatever. There's no pride. All of our actions. And God looks for this in the heart before he cares what the action is. He looks for whatever service in the heart. Promoting a consistency or faithfulness in that behavior. I will do whatever as long as God has me doing whatever. I will never stop. And I'll do this until the day I die. So it's not just about the action, it's about the heart behind it. Listen, well done, good and faithful servant. You were faithful over a few things, Matthew 25:21. I'll make you ruler over many things. Enter into the joy of the Lord. We start in joy, and oftentimes if you're around and you're helping, you might have people ask you to do more than what you were doing. But that's not the doctrine of achievement. That's a doctrine of whatever. You need me to do that? I'm happy to help. You need me to go teach in Red Wing? I'll do what I can to do it. It'll be good, bad, or ugly. You need me to mop the floors because they're messy? I'll get them up. And whatever service doesn't necessarily aspire to more, but God often takes those people and moves them into deeper ministry because they want to be doing it. But the key is faithfulness. If you're in and out and we can't rely on you and you're gone half the time, that's good, we'll take care of it. We have faithful people that can take care of service. Does that make sense? Again, red pill thing. If you're not a believer, that sounds really harsh. But if you are a believer, there's something stirring in you going, I want to help. I want to be here every week. It is my desire to worship the Lord through a faithful pattern of behavior. I will consecrate, devote, aspire to holiness in certain parts of my life, and I'm going to give it over to the Lord. I guarantee you this, as a person walking with the Lord for 30 years, you will never be in debt to God. He won't have it. Whatever you give to the Lord, he's going to bless you and your soul will prosper in those things because he's going to give back to you more than you ever give to him. And I am so not talking about money. I'm talking about your heart, your soul. God looks for these kinds of people, these good, and faithful, I can depend on you kinds of people. John appreciates this in Gaius, so does God. And the reward is the same for anybody in the church doing anything. And so get it out of your head that certain behaviors and actions are more important than others. No, they're not. In fact, there's more responsibility and more dangers the more aspiring things that get done in the church. Trust me, if I throw my tongue in my mouth and say some heresy, I will hear about it all week. Right? It's better for a millstone to be tied around somebody's neck than to mistreat or misteach these little children. That's a responsibility, but I'm like, whatever, Lord. If you want to use me, you can use me. For brethren and the strangers, this is great. Again, I'm taking my time with this one because every line in here. Gaius is doing this not just for the brethren in the church, but here we get this idea of and for strangers. The word stranger there literally means a foreigner, an alien. You might say a guest to the church, somebody visiting. Gaius is the guy that takes care of the visitors. He doesn't just take care of the body, he's actually overflowing and ready to take care of other people. And the strangers are often more work than the people in the body. You look across the room going, you doing okay? And they're like, good. And you're taken care of. But strangers take time, conversations. So we call these people here at our church people with a gift of helps and welcomers. People that are willing to welcome somebody into this church. Tell them who we are. Tell them how we do fellowship, how we operate, what we do. Trust me, like when people come and visit and they're expecting a 20-minute sermon and I go for an hour, like that's shattering expectations. And usually they're like, I'm out of here. But if they know, hey, we do Bible study here. We're in it for an hour. Get your notebook. There's a Bible in the back. Settle in. And we're going to take a class on 3 John with one chapter. John, you got me all screwed up on how to say stuff. Verse 6, you who have borne witness of your love before the church. He's actually talked about it. Some of these strangers, likely traveling Christians, have borne witness. They've seen this man stand out at this church as someone that made them feel welcome and special, enough so that when they go to John, they're like, yeah, I visited that church, and have you heard of this guy named Gaius? Man, that guy was just awesome. anytime I go to that town, I want to visit that guy. And there's a welcome that gets presented by this person of your love before the church. It's on display. And as believers, we should always be speaking well of each other in truth. We don't lie, but we speak well of each other. When there's good things to say, we say them. We talk about each other. By the way, this is called in the Bible, this is a witness. This is not gossip. Gossip is when you talk negatively about other people, or you tell a bunch of other people's stories to elevate yourself. That's gossip. But when I'm just saying, man, I met David and he was doing a great job. I talked to Dom this week, man, and he's just thriving. Have you heard that John's taken on 15 new Bible studies? That's what we talk about in the church. We bear witness. Some people get surprised by this. You know, when you go from one church to the other, at least in the Calvary Association, like a lot of times, like pastors will call each other. Like, hey, I got somebody they want to serve. You know, normally I'd tell people hang out for 6 months and meet us, but they told me they came from your church. Are they faithful? And I'll be like, well, I'll tell the truth. Yeah, they're faithful in the ministry. They say they're going to be there for something and they're there. All right, I'm not going to wait 6 months. I'm going to hook this person in. And so that idea that John and the elder and Gaius, that they're writing letters and visitors are talking about how everybody's doing, yes, we talk about each other. How's so-and-so? How's their prayer life? What are they going through? Because it helps us in our prayer life, right? But there is a danger when we talk about each other, as we see in this letter, of taking it beyond that, where we're trying to show how we're connected and everybody else is disconnected. That's gossip. Or something bad happens and all, did you hear what happened to so-and-so? And you're trying to bring somebody down. That's gossip. So we want to avoid that, but I don't see gossip here. I see a wholehearted love in truth, talking about what Gaius is doing at the church and saying, wow, this guy's really stepping up to be a leader. So John cites as evidence that Gaius is doing it right as he moves on. So there's no greater joy. You're doing these good things for strangers. Their training is good. And then we get to the end of verse 6. You send them forward. The word if is not there in the original texts. It's not a conditional statement. If is a big word in English. It's conditional. But there's no conditional here. It says you send them forward on their journey. These are the strangers. In a manner worthy of God. You will do well, because they went forth for his name's sake, taking nothing from the Gentiles. We therefore ought to receive such, that we may become fellow workers for the truth. Wow, fellow workers, that's a new status. So 2 John warned the elect lady not to host and welcome people that were spreading garbage in the church. Remember that? This one, in verse 6, boy, if you greet people and send them on a way that's worthy of God, they feel blessed when they leave, you should do that. Okay, now I'm confused. Do I host people and greet people, or do I not host people and not greet people? And this, again, this is something that I think it's really important that you're actually doing the hosting. When in error, let's err on the side of complete gracefulness. Welcome, sending people on their way. We should host people in truth. We should host guest teachers at our conferences. We should host people that come in from other churches and welcome them. But discernment's a key. Sometimes we host people that are of one accord, they're fellow workers. And you instantly connect with them, and you start talking about what they're doing in their ministry and what we're doing in our ministry, and you make these wonderful connections. Some people want to talk about things of this world. And you're like, okay, that's great. And you kind of back off from them a little bit. And in the backing off, we're kind of coaching people. This is what we do here. We talk about the word. We study it. We talk about it. We talk about how we're applying it. We also talk about how to fix engines and how to repair guns. And we talk about all those kinds of things too, but it's on a foundation of friendship that's built around our love for the word, right? We see discernment coming up in all these. Discernment, when I was a young believer, I just wanted the Lord to tell me what to do. Like, make the decision for me, God. And then I would reach out to other believers that had confidence, and I'd say, what should I do on this? And they'd say, do this. And I would just do it. But what you're doing is you're bypassing prayer and actually talking to the Lord yourself. The Lord's asking you as an individual to have discernment around who you show friendship to and who you don't, who you greet and who you don't, who you send on their way as in a godly sense and who you don't. Have discernment. Be thoughtful about this. It's not the easy way to go. Galatians 6:1 says, "Dear brothers and sisters, if another believer is overcome by sin, you who are godly should gently and humbly help that person back onto the right path. And be careful not to fall into the same temptation yourself." Okay, so there's discernment. Even when a brother or sister here in our church is in sin, our goal is to help them move back onto the right path. Our goal isn't to ostracize them. Our goal is to love them into the right decision. Yet there is this idea of sending people forward on their journey, that there's a growth process that's to be expected. So if we have someone in our body that's living in sin and then talking about why they do it to everybody in the church, we'll try to correct them once, twice, 3 times. But at some point you're like, please stop promoting that lifestyle in our church. We're not about that here. We're about the Word. We're about the path of righteousness here. In a manner worthy of God. Our behavior is actually a reflection on the banner we're holding up. You know when you take up the name of Jesus and you say you're a Christian, but then you live in a way that's an abomination to God? That's called a false witness. You're bearing God's name in vain because it doesn't mean anything. And so doing all these things, and if we do it right, I love this phrase, you will do well. Hey, Gaius, if you're, for the rest of your believing life, if you welcome people and send them on their way, and you do it like God does, you're going to do well. That's a good path to be on. Don't need to aspire to anything past that. You will do well. God puts a burden on us and it's fairly light. It is so light, it actually lifts us up. It's like attaching yourself to 1,000 hydrogen balloons. The burden of God isn't one that presses on us. It's one that actually lifts us. And so taking on those burdens, everything in the flesh resists it, but any offering we make to God is going to be a feeble offering to God, no matter what position it's in. Think of the relation we have to an almighty God. No matter what we offer is not worthy in and of itself. It isn't going to earn us anything. And we'll do well to do those things. Even if we in our flesh think it's feeble, we'll do well in doing those things and persisting in them. Our simple submission is what God wants to use for his name's sake. Taking nothing from the Gentiles. Oh my goodness, there's another phrase. John seems to think it's a good thing that when you send people out from your church, they're not asking for anything. They're supported. They don't need to go ask for things from the Gentiles. So there was a habit in the first century of kind of these traveling pastors. And we have this sometimes today, especially in the 1920s. And they would go around church to church, town to town, and they'd preach the scriptures. But John has written letters, so did Paul, about some of these that were not good theory. Like, don't invite these people to come speak at your church. But this idea, they would often come in and then we call it pass the plate. Hey, if you want to help my ministry, if you liked my 20-minute teaching, I need thousands of dollars to keep my ministry going. You've met these people or seen these people? You know, you go to one of their events and you're getting mailers for the rest of your life. Always. And what it is it's a plague on the church. People that look at the church as their profession. And they need to lean on the church or ask something of, and the word Gentiles here, again, is this idea of non-Christ followers. It's the ethnos multitudes. It's the large group. They're not asking anything of the group. If God's called you to a ministry, let me implore you on this. God will provide for that ministry. You don't have to ask. He'll raise people up that will support you in that ministry. I know it. And if you're not able to find the support to go sell your popsicle sticks somewhere, maybe that's not what God's calling to you to. Maybe that's the flesh. And so I visited a friend's church. They literally passed the plate 3 times throughout the service. And he was like, that's just how we do it in Nigeria. And I'm like, well, Nigeria's got problems because this is a money-making endeavor. Have you noticed at our church, we never pass a plate, ever. We've never come up short. In fact, last year, for those of you that stay for leadership meeting, we only came up short 3 months of the year. The rest of the year more than made up for it. We always have what we need to do ministry because God's always provided. As we've grown, we've had exactly what we've needed every year in the ministry. And every year we do it, we get more and more trusting that the Lord's going to provide for what he guides us in and where he sends us. He will always take care of it. So John's proud of the fact that, boy, you send people out, you send them as God's going to send them, you host them, you take care of them. Gaius is providing for people and sending them off with provision. And when they go off, they're never begging for money, which means they've been trained the right way. They've been taught in the doctrine that John's been teaching. Remember when Jesus sent out the disciples? He did it twice. One time he said, take nothing with you, because he just wanted them to see you can go out with nothing and God will take care of you on the way. The second time he sent them out, he's like, okay, you can take a walking staff. Let's have some common sense. You've learned your lesson. Bring enough with you that you don't have to ask people for anything. Oh, that all of our mission work was that reliant on the Lord. Maybe it would be more successful. Verse 8, we therefore ought to receive such. There's an ought to in this passage. And I take that seriously. It's not a direct command, but John's idea is we ought to be the kinds of people that receive others. We ought to be people that care for others and welcome them as they come in. We don't take from other people. We don't hit up other churches for funding. Man, I had a pastor call me about 3 months ago, and he needs funding to support his ministry. And I'm like, don't you have a church? Well, yeah. But he has a church of about 15 people, and he wants to be a full-time pastor. So he's hitting up other churches to fund his ministry. And I'm like, well, I'm still working full-time. I got 3 times the people you have. Maybe you should get a job. And he didn't like that. He went to call other pastors. The sad part is if he calls enough pastors, he'll probably get people that'll help him out. Because in the church, we're really nice people. We're kind. We're generally gracious and generous. So there's a way that we do it. Here's the ought to. Here's the way. Verse 4, walk in the truth. Start with the Bible. Learn it. 2, be faithful and show up and be dependable. I think that's a stage 2, verse 5. Verse 3, do it all in love. If you need to back off in ministries and then engage in ministries, just communicate that. But make sure you're always doing it in love. Stay that way. And then do it with your own resources, verse 7. Take your own stuff and pitch in. This might be the reason that John prays for earthly prosperity for Gaius in verse 1, is because he knows that Gaius is a good steward and he's generous with what he has. So he's like praying. I pray Gaius gets a ton of earthly things so that he can use them for God's kingdom. And then 5, be a fellow worker for the truth. Be on a team. A fellow worker, the idea of the word fellow is that they're a team player. They work with other people. They're not mavericks. In the church, we work together. Verse 8. Somebody will say, I want to do an activity here at the church. I'm like, oh, that's cool. But when you plan the weekend, let's work that out so we're not stepping on each other's stuff and that the church isn't having to choose between people they love on a given weekend. Does that make sense? So we're fellow workers. We do stuff together. If we're doing stuff and it's like we think it's a great idea, but it's causing disruptions for other people, there'll be other people that'll say, hey, can you do it this way instead of that way? And we're like, cool, no problem. We're fellow workers. We all have the same mission. And then the idea of becoming a fellow worker. I know I'm getting really granular on this one. It's not assumed that you start out that way. So we have tons of grace as people learn how to be a fellow worker. It's not intuitive. In the flesh, we either hide in a corner or we take the lead and step up to the front. To be in the pack is hard for human beings, right? To just be on a team and with people, it's difficult because you have to actually deal with people. This is an area of growth for me. If I wasn't saved, if you knew me 30 years ago, I didn't need to be friends with people. It didn't do anything. Like I would just if it wasn't for my wife, I think I'd be living in a cave somewhere up in the hills. And I'd have a beard like this long, and I just wouldn't have interacted with people. But the Lord did something in my heart. He started building rooms. Started with Grant, and then Katie, and then Britta and Jonathan. But all of a sudden, he started making more and more rooms in my heart. And I noticed the more rooms God made in my heart, none of the other ones got smaller. My heart just got bigger. Until a lot of you guys you know me in this era of my life. You're like, Sean's a pretty loving guy. But boy, outside of Christ, that's not who I am. Jesus is the way, the truth, and the life. If we're going to become fellow workers for the truth, we're becoming fellow workers for Jesus. And that's what we're doing. John turns to 2 people in the second half of the letter. He's teaching how to do discernment, but he's teaching a guy who's doing it right. He's getting it right in all ways. But as with 2 John, John's coaching Gaius away from false teachers, also a major theme in doctrine. John starts by naming the guy, Diotrephes. I'm just going to call him Dio, right? Dio is drawing a line between Dio and all these other people Gaius is helping. Beloved Gaius, you're spiritually contributing to your church, but in contrast, you're also maybe hosting a guy you shouldn't be hosting. So Gaius helps with the work of the church. Everybody knows it. Dio hurts the work of the church. Well, what's the difference? How do you sort this out? Verse 9, I wrote to the church, but Diotrephes, who loves to have the preeminence among them, doesn't receive us. Whoa. One attribute of Dio is he really loves attention. He wants to be the main guy. He's an alpha. That's a pop psychology term for people that love the preeminence. They want to be the center of attention. They can't sit and not be the center of attention. We might call them narcissists today, but the word Diotrephes means nourished by Zeus. It's a Greek name. Zeus is the god of power. He wants attention. He wants to be on the stage. He wants to be influencing people. It's kind of an ironic name, but it could be that John's concealing this guy's name too by calling him nourished by Zeus. It's very possible that he's kind of concealing names here a little bit. He loves to have the preeminence. Let's focus on John's point. That is a strong contrast to verse 3 and 4. Gaius loves to walk in the truth. I don't care about anything but walking in the truth. But Dio, boy, he wants to have attention. So this is the sin of pride. People are not called in the church to love their position. We're called to love Jesus and love one another. Never a position, never a title. Matthew 6:1, take heed that you do not do your charitable deeds before men, to be seen by them, to be preeminent. Otherwise, you have no reward from your Father in heaven. You're doing it wrong. And to walk in truth, there's one way to walk in the truth. There's, by the way, one way to get to heaven. There's one Savior that will get you there. God has a very narrow and to some an offensive path to walk, but one path is you do not seek to aspire yourself, you seek to humble yourself. Have the right heart as you come into a church. So this idea that Dio didn't receive them, it's kind of an interesting idea. It's kind of preposterous. What early church wouldn't accept the Apostle John when they came to the church? Imagine, say people lived really, really long, and before church started, this old guy walks in, and we're like, hey, who are you? And he's like, I'm the Apostle John. Whoa! I hope as a church, we'd be like, John just walked in the door. There would be a buzz. Oh my goodness, John's here, holy moly. Hey, John, do you want to teach? If anybody should be teaching today, John, it should be you. And I'd be like, oh, I got all my sermon notes, and I prepared all week for this, so I don't know. You'd be robbing your church to not let John have the podium, right? I think that's true of almost anything we do in the church, honestly. But if John walks in the door and this guy says no, it's because he thinks his teaching is going to somehow or another be preeminent above the teaching of a guy who trained with Jesus for 3 years. John is the elder in that situation, but he loves the preeminence, doesn't want to give up his position, doesn't want to be challenged by anybody. And people that lead like Dio, they have very weak congregations. Because if you constantly need to be the center of attention, you will disciple people weakly because you can't stand anybody to challenge your authority. You're not humble enough to do that. It's a dangerous situation. Because what will happen then over time is people like Dio get further, they're nourished by Zeus, not by the word. They're going to get more and more puffed up. And as sooner or later, they'll have somebody like John writing a letter like this. This guy shouldn't be there. He doesn't receive good things. I dwell in a high and holy place, says God, with him who has a contrite and humble spirit, to revive the spirit of the humble, Isaiah 57:15, and to receive the heart of the contrite one. You know what? God's not looking for prideful people. He's looking for contrite people. And that's hard for those of you that are beautiful, talented, and smart. Pride's really easy to come by. So we work on humility. We train ourselves in humility. God loves the helper more than the aspiring person. So we bow before an altar. We don't set ourselves up to be in the preeminent spot, ever. I love it when you ask a brother, hey, are you willing to teach next Sunday? And they're like, oh, I don't know if I'm worthy to teach. But everybody in the church knows they're ready to share some wisdom. Everybody does. John calls this out. Watch out for anybody that likes to have all the attention all the time. Watch out for these people. Listen to what God says that started his interest in Daniel. This is great. What got God's attention when Daniel started praying? This is what got his attention. Daniel 10:12. He said, listen to me, don't fear, Daniel. From the first day that you, listen, set your heart to understand and humble yourself before your God, your words were heard. And I have come because of your words. The second Daniel humbled himself and sought to understand what the Bible said, God's now listening to him. I think that implies that for prideful people, God's not even listening. So you'll find people that run into it. Do you remember that day in your life? Do you remember when you first humbled yourself before God? Said, Lord, I just want to understand better. What an amazing place to put your heart. And I hope you never forget it. I hope even if God gives you the opportunity to clean bricks, and you can clean bricks for Jesus, and everybody in the church just says, oh, look at our brick cleaning person, that the pride never gets to you. That you always are like, I'll do anything. I'm a whatever Christian. I'll help wherever, whenever, however. And I'll set my heart to that, even if people want to compliment, praise, and lift up what I'm doing for the church. Compliments are great. We speak well of one another, just like the brethren spoke well of Gaius. And other people will praise and lift up people that are faithful. We don't have to do it ourselves. We can always keep our heart. We want to be fed by the Lord, not by Zeus. So John is acting in love when he says, watch out for Diotrephes. Watch out for this guy. He's not kicking him out of the church. He's just saying, tune in. Know that that guy that maybe you're being really buddy-buddy with, know that that guy's not being heard by the Lord. His arrogance is in the way. But he never says to kick Dio out of the church. He just says to beware of him. I beseech you, brethren, Romans 16:17, mark them that cause divisions and offenses contrary to the doctrine which you've learned. Avoid them. Doesn't say kick them out of the church. It just says avoid them. Don't have to have much to do with people that are teaching false doctrines and complaining, gossiping. Avoid them. Stay away. Look at his deeds. John says he's going to point to 6 deeds. And I think John picked the number 6. He shows 6 things that Diotrephes does. Therefore, if I come, I will call to mind his deeds, which he does, prating against us with malicious words. And not content with that, he himself does not receive the brethren. And he forbids those who wish to, putting them out of the church. He's the guy causing division, not John. So he's going to call to mind these deeds. John's going to name the things. He tried to send a letter before. It didn't get listened to. So now he's going to send the letter to Gaius, and he's going to warn the other believers. Here's the 6 things. Prating against. The word prating there literally means bubbles. Sometimes you look things up and they're kind of funny. It means bubbles. Idle talk, gossip, empty words. The idea of a bubble is it rises up in the heat. Things are always stirring with these people. And then when you check it out, you pop it and there's just air. There's nothing there. You ever meet people where every time you talk to them, there's some new kind of drama in their life? There's something new all the time. I love how Brad calls it the drama train. Bubbles, empty words, belittling of others, deflating of others, hurting their reputation because it's bubbles against us. That's number 1. Number 2, malicious words. These aren't empty words, these are intentional words. Malicious there means full of labor. They're annoyances, they're offenses. These people are always finding fault with others. And Dio has both. He's a prater and a malicious worder. Right? Here's the third thing. They're not content. Watch out for people that are never content. Nasty talk often leads to nasty actions, right? If someone who's always offended by others will eventually be offended by you. Wait for it. It'll happen. Someone who's complaining or gossiping about others, they're going to complain and gossip about you. But they'll show you lots of friendliness so that you tell them all the dirt so they can then go talk about it to other people. The state of being not content is a symptom of a deeper hunger, a sickness. People that can't just abide, they can't just be at rest, they can't just settle in with a family, that's a problem. I worry about brothers and sisters that are bouncing from church to church to church to church to church to church. What's wrong? Are these not godly people that you're settling in with, be it there or here or elsewhere? Why do you have to keep moving all the time? Is it because as you make relationships, suddenly they get too real and you got to go? Is it because as you settle in with a family, you're just not content? There's an ambition or a pride there that gets hard. Then the fourth thing, they don't receive the brethren. They're not welcoming. They kind of have their own little clique. They're not interested in people that come and visit. They're not interested in building the body. They don't give hospitality. They just take it. So Dio's sizing up to be kind of a horrible person, right? What does it take to have someone to have a heart of inhospitality? They're happy to drink the coffee, but they're never ready to clean it up. They'll spill and they'll wait for somebody else to get it, right? They don't receive the brethren. The fifth thing here is they forbid those. They actually, and note these are progressive, they actually hinder or reject the ministries of other people. Instead of helping other people do ministry, they're actually hindering it. They forbid things. They deny or refuse things. There's a lot of literature in the New Testament around the idea of like putting burdens on other people, which is a form of forbidding. Oh, if you want to be a real believer, you got to do it this way, that way, and this way, not the biblical way. Sixth thing, putting them out, actually making it so people don't want to come to church and or ejecting people. Diotrephes is in some kind of leadership position, and he seems to be plucking people out that he doesn't want to deal with. So this is, again, a tough teaching. There's 6 things: prating, malicious, discontent, reception, forbidding, and putting people out. 6 things this guy does wrong. And in every one of those 6 things, I can flip that and say, those are the things I should be doing right. What's the opposite of prating? Praising. The opposite of maliciousness? Encouragement. The opposite of contentment or discontentment is contentment. Be happy. Not receiving, the opposite is hospitality, what Gaius is doing. Forbidding those versus assisting and helping those. Putting people out versus bringing people in the door. So I can think of the opposite and think, boy, that sounds a lot more like the Gaius that we saw at the beginning of the letter. Here's a good example. Jesus uses the same word of putting people out. It's the same word that gets used in Matthew 7, the plucking. And it's in a totally different context, but I thought this was interesting enough to share. Matthew 7:4 says, how can you say to your brother, let me remove the speck from your eye, and look, a plank is in your own? Plucking people out, the way Jesus used that word, was going around finding fault in people. You got this problem, and you got that problem, and you got that problem. All you got to do is turn around and say, you got a pride problem. If that's all you see in your brothers and sisters, you're missing something. Feel sorry for them. Today, some people help with the work of the church, some people don't. I always try to simplify this kind of text. There's people that are here and they're here sincerely, they have a good heart, and welcome. There are people here that are struggling with their faith and working stuff out. Welcome. But then you sometimes get people that come and they want to run everything. And you're like, why don't you just hang out for a while before you tell us how to do things? We like our brick cleaner. They do just fine back there. Luke 11:23, he who is not with me is against me, and who doesn't gather scatters. There are people that attract others and people that you just run from them because you know you're in it for a while if you get into it with them. Who draws people? Who scatters people? It's kind of an interesting division, but even today we see that in the church. Again, remember I said you got to be in the church to understand these things. If you're just visiting or you're not really a churchgoer, this is hard to understand these social dynamics. But the Bible actually talks about the social dynamics. That when you invest in a family, Uncle Louie is crazy and he sits by himself in the corner because everybody knows who he is. But we still love Uncle Louie. He's part of the family. And we'll put up with him as long as he's not being destructive. Gaius knows this person. He knows Diotrephes. And he's getting forcefully directed by this guy, in all likelihood, not to host and what to do and how to do it. This guy is happy to shepherd, but he doesn't know how to do it. And Gaius is taking this thing, and John's countering it by saying, don't listen to the guy who thinks he knows what he's doing. Any person that has all the answers probably has none of them. Because there's a pride problem there. Any person who's more than willing to give you advice, I would take that advice, put it on a shelf, hang on to it, and then balance it out with 12 other people. Get wisdom. Seek wisdom. Put the time in to get your wisdom. But the first person to give you a tip or a piece of advice, they're probably the last person you want to listen to, in all likelihood. Again, this is like the Proverbs as a book. Verse 11, beloved, there's that word again. Don't imitate what's evil, but what's good. He who does good is of God, but he who does evil hasn't seen God. They haven't had that moment of salvation. They haven't seen the world through God's eyes. They don't see and hear like God sees and hears. So watch out for that. Our flesh is drawn by powerful people. It just is. This is one of the weirdest things in sociology. It's called a cult of personality. And in the flesh and without Jesus Christ, we are naturally drawn to people who think they know what they're doing. Or at least they put on a great act. They've got all the answers. They've got the path. You could just call them politicians, but they happen in every social group. All over the place. People that love preeminence. In 2 John, he encourages the lady to reject false teachers. Please don't host them. And here in John, he warns against individually, avoid these kinds of people. Stay away from them. It creates an interesting dynamic in the church where we coach and sharpen one another. If we're doing it wrong, we're going to find ourselves falling away. When we start to do it right, we're going to find more relationships. And in doing that, we coach each other how to walk with Christ. It's really, beloved, don't imitate what's evil. Yet imitation is one of the core instructions that we're given. 1 Corinthians 4:15, Paul writes like this. For though you might have 10,000 instructors in Christ, yet you don't have many fathers. For in Christ Jesus I've begotten you, same language John used, through the gospel. Therefore I urge you, imitate me as I imitate Christ. Lots of people were willing to give you advice, probably 2 or 3 people that you're going to follow into the faith. And you're going to walk like them and talk like them because you can see they're imitating Jesus. They look more like Jesus. Beloved, don't imitate what's evil. Let's not fall into what our former selves would be attracted to. We don't need pop stars. We don't need icons. We don't need idols. What we need is Jesus, all-powerful, all-knowing, all-present, wonderful, loving, caring, and personal. We need him. And we will follow people that look like or appear to have the fruit of the Spirit because they follow him. And Paul is perfectly ready to say, imitate me, because he's walking with Christ. You will do well to follow people that are walking with Christ. Even if Dio looks confident, he brags how holy he is, he comes with smooth, appealing words, he makes a scene. Everywhere he goes, he shows up. Look elsewhere. Follow the cross. Don't follow a person, ever. Again, working with those middle schoolers a couple weeks ago, they kept asking, what do you think about this? And I had to coach them. It doesn't matter what I think about this. It matters what the Bible says about it. Stop following people. Look for those where other people are bragging them up. Look for those who have a reputation in the body like Gaius. All the brethren are telling me how you're walking in the Spirit. Follow that kind of person. Often they're in the back corner not looking for your attention because everybody's seeking their advice. I do want to make the point here on this, and I think this is the grace side. Again, this is a discernment thing. John never says to kick Dio out of the church, ever. He just advises Gaius, think about where you're getting your wisdom from. Have some intelligence around that. And so he does give another example. This guy named Demetrius. Likely Demetrius is either the guy who brought the letter, so Gaius doesn't know him very well, but he's going to get a recommendation from John. Hey, Demetrius, he's walking in the truth, follow him. So taking the advice of the elder, and or Demetrius is a guy John's aware of back at the church, who's a godly man. Where never is heard a discouraging word. This guy's serving, helping, working, encouraging, serving. Follow Demetrius. Verse 12, Demetrius has a good testimony from all. Again, other people spoke well of Demetrius. He doesn't have to speak well of himself. He never has to puff himself up. Imagine that. A leader that never has to promote themselves. Oh, in the church we have those. They're amazing. Demetrius doesn't have to puff himself up. He has a good testimony from all, from everybody, and from the truth itself. Hey, the scriptures back this guy up. Jesus backs this guy up. Testimony from Jesus is often the bearing forth of the fruits of the Spirit. Like he prays for things, they happen. He blesses people, they're blessed. And we also bear witness. John says, I'm also going to bear witness, and you know that our testimony is true. We vouch for Demetrius. We trust Demetrius. You don't trust people that aren't faithful. You don't say that about people that don't show up. You don't say that about people that come in with kooky doctrines. But when you have somebody that comes and they're solid and they're in the Word and they're walking in the faith and they're beloved and they're caring and they're truthful, you say things like this. He has a good testimony from everybody. One time we had a guy that came to the church. He's pretty full of himself. And he's talking to one of our elders and he comes to me privately and he goes, I don't even know if that elder is saved. And I'm like, what are you, nuts? Everybody speaks well of that guy. I'll name him. It's Tom. Like, everybody loves Tom. Do you even know who you're talking about? Like, this is Tom. He's graceful. He's kind. He's sweet. He helps. He's a blessing to everybody who knows him. Am I wrong? Is there anybody that can speak against Tom in this room right now? Thank you, Tom, for being that kind of guy at our church. We have those guys. And if you're jealous that I named Tom and not you, you're not the right kind of guy. Verse 13, I had many things to write. Oh, John says this sometimes. But I don't wish to write to you with pen and ink. I don't want to keep texting you, is how you might translate it today. I want to be with you. I don't want to have an email exchange around these things. But at the same time, he's writing a letter, right? He's got to say some things, needs to happen. But I hope to see you shortly, verse 14. And we shall speak face to face. You know, at the end of the day, us being together is better than me writing you a letter, isn't it? Isn't it better to be here today than last week in a snowstorm having to listen via audio? John prefers face-to-face communication, but in times of need, he writes. When he's just got to deal with a situation, he writes. And we do the same thing. There's times where we text things, of course, especially when it has to get taken care of. Can't wait till next Sunday. Needs to be dealt with. We text sometimes, but there is a bit of irony in that John's like, it's always better to do face-to-face, but he's still writing a letter, you know? Diotrephes would be like, oh, this guy's a hypocrite. Look at that. But you get it. He closes the letter dealing with a pretty strong turmoil or conflict in the church, but his hope here, notice that his prayer is peace to you. So John's dealing with conflict between people, but at the end of the day, and I think this is a pastor's heart, all he wants is peace for Gaius. Peace to you. Our friends greet you. Greet the friends by name. Interesting thing, when you look up the word greet, it can mean to receive people, but it can also mean to send them away, which is why I think it's here twice. Our friends greet you. Greet the friends by name. Send people out with blessing. When they leave, they shouldn't leave with a hard heart or bitterness. Do everything you can to have people leave in peace. And people will leave sometimes. So as we discern this, as we sort this all out, how do you summarize 3 John? I would say this. We need to follow God, and we hope for peace when we do that, even when we deal with interpersonal issues in a church. And John does it with grace. He does it with truth. He doesn't dance around. He names what Diotrephes has done, which is clearly not scriptural. He's pointed it out. And the hope here, though, the season of life that John wants, is a period of time in Gaius' life that's just peaceful. So maybe Gaius has been dealing with this Diotrephes. He's been getting bad advice from the guy. It's been a season of struggle. And what John wants as a pastor is, Gaius, just have some peace. You don't have to listen to this guy. So we'll end there. We'll end on that note. Peace to you. Even though this is a tough letter, even though this is a thick piece of text, peace to you. And stay in fellowship. Greet each other by name. That's a great indication right at the end there. Greet each other by name. Is there anyone in the room you don't know the name of? Let's start there. We're a small church. Go up and introduce yourself. My name is so-and-so. Just say Michael. There's half of the guys in the church. If I'm not humbled before God, we're going to do communion here pretty soon. The guys are going to start passing it out right now. If I'm not humbled before God, if I don't come with a contrite heart, I would ask you that we're going to take a little time to pray. Come to God with a humble heart before you take communion in fellowship with other saints. And if you can't do that, there's no shame in just passing the plate. Just wave the guy off that's coming around with the stuff. You don't have to do communion. But if you do communion, we're gathered in His name. Do it in truth. And do it in love for one another in the body. Prepare your heart as we do it, as we take it. We will do this. The reason we do communion is a remembrance. God commands many of these in the Bible, but Jesus gave us one activity that we were to do to remember what He did for us. So when we take some time to pray, reflect on that, know it. Even if you're a visitor to the church, if you're right with Jesus and your family is the people of Jesus, you are welcome to take communion with us. You are brothers and sisters, and we want to welcome you into that communion. If you haven't made a decision for Christ yet, don't belittle our rituals. Don't make something small that is mighty in God's eyes, and fellowship is mighty in God's eyes. So we'll take those things. You guys can go ahead and start passing them around. I'd like to get those passed before we take a moment of silence before it. Jesus met with His disciples right before He was crucified, and He said to them, I don't want to drink of the vine again till I see you, till I come back, till I return. And in that time, do this in remembrance of me. And He gave them bread and He gave them wine, grape juice. And these were two things that were images. He spoke of the bread, and He spoke of His body being broken for us, giving His life on our behalf. Spoke of the drink as an image or a symbol of His blood that was shed for us, as any sacrifice would be shed under the law of God. So He took the elements, two key elements of Passover, and He transformed them for the Christian church. We don't remember Egypt and the release from Egypt anymore. We remember that Jesus released us from our sin and the death that was the duty that came with it. Thank you for remembering me, guys. Appreciate it. This is all Josiah. Thanks, Josiah. You guys always forget me, and I feel out of the fellowship. So let's take a moment. Make your peace with God and pray for the others in this church, but be right with God and fellowship in the body before you take the elements. And we'll take the elements together.